Hi all, Bones here from Bantams, getting onto the back wheel. Now I've had a problem, you'll wonder why this bolt's sticking out of here. So the spacer between the two bearings in these hubs are absolutely parallel, so there's no real lip. It's really hard to get on the edge of the bearing to try and tap it to move it down. So I've persisted for a little while with this and I've given it up as a bad joke. So what I've done is I've actually welded a bolt to the inner race of the bearing. Obviously I'm not going to use these bearings again, and that'll give me something to actually put the pin punch against to be able to knock it out. Now that I've already tapped it a little bit, and I've got it to move, so it's pretty easy. So that's effectively what I do, just welded a bolt to it, and that gives you a face in there just to tap the bearing out, and you saw how easy it was to tap out. Now that the space is out, I can just flip it over and tap the other bearing out. So same as the last wheel, I've already measured the offset on this one's only 2mm, so I'll chop all the spokes out, clean the hub up, get that ready to go away for vapor blasting. So in the workshop at the moment we are pretty busy, and I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're up to. Okay, there is the BSA Bantam race bike without the engine in it. That's the ignition system just sitting there on the foot peg. And what we found, what the matter was with it, when the customer was racing this bike, he went through a pretty big puddle, and it looks like he's hydraulically locked the engine, because that crankshaft, sorry, that conrod is bent like a banana. You can see the heat on it, and you can see the wear mark at the bottom. So if you just bear with me, sorry about this. You'll see where it's been wearing there and wearing there. So it's actually bent around like that. So that would have been sapping a huge amount of horsepower out of the motor. And interestingly enough, out of the 9 Bantams that were racing, he was still the fastest. He did this in the first race. Sucked a gutload of water into the engine stopped, he wasn't able to complete that race. Raced the next 4 races, and he out of 9 Bantams that were in the class, he won each time with that running like that in the engine. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this engine goes when it goes all back together. Crankshaft over there all done with the new conrod kit in it. Clutch, most of the other bits, gearbox selector, carby over the back there. We've changed the pod filter to a bell mouth, and I'm only just waiting on a barrel to come back that's being rebored for that, because it had some horrendous wear down the side of the barrel because the piston was obviously out of alignment. The XV1100 I'm just waiting on parts for. They've got to come from overseas, so postage at the moment is not the quickest. And sitting here is a 1980 Ducati 500 Sl Panther, which is actually mine. So it had been sitting over in a museum, and when I brought it home, it wasn't idling too well. I know it had been sitting there, but I had a bit of a play with the idle and tension up the chain and oil the cables and a few other little things. Absolutely superb bike to ride. It's fantastic. So that's one I restored that one about, oh golly, 10 years ago now. So yeah. Over under the cover there are all our painted pieces from the other day, and in the box there, Jawa bits. The wash-up area, you'll see a Jawa engine case over in the solvent bath there, and that'll come into this hot wash bath here, and we'll give that a good scrub up. I've got some weld repairs to do. See the other crankcase half sitting in the bucket there. For people that know Australia, and especially Broken Hill, this bike came from Broken Hill, so it was just covered in red dust. That just takes heaps to scrub off, so I've been scrubbing all day yesterday to get that off. So yeah, we're making progress. It's all going all right. All right, next challenge that we've got is that this piece here has broken out. Now there's a few issues with this. This little U-shaped portion here, a rubber grommet fits in there, and all the electrics that sit in here, the cable actually goes out through there. So this is the side where your sprocket will, your final drive comes out here and your chain comes through here. But this piece here is broken out and it won't actually sit properly back in. So it's not only broken out, I think it's a little bit bent. Now you'll see right here, that's a screw hole for the cover that goes on this side. So I've got to position it so that'll be in alignment with the screw that comes through the cover. A couple of other issues, you can't see it's just sitting on here, but there's a recessed hole here for your crankcase screw, so I can't put any weld around there, and if I do, I'll have to go and try and mill it back out. I've got plenty of space to actually weld through the crack here, but on the back I've got a bit of limited area because there's the way these mounts are over here, there's a mount behind it. So this one's going to be a bit of a challenge. Beautiful thing about these Jawa cases is they are heavy, so the chance of distortion is pretty low, and I also intend to actually MIG weld it, not TIG weld it. I can't, it's just too hard to get a torch in through here, and I think I'll be able to do it with zap it with the MIG a bit. So I've got to go back and first of all get this to fit. I'll tack weld it in to make sure my alignment for this hole is correct. Like I'll fit the cover on, drop the screw in, see if that works, and then I'll continue to weld it. But this all has to be done before we send it away to get vapor blasted. So I'll have to weld it, dress it all off, and then I can send it away to be vapor blasted. So it's a case of just getting that to fit properly in there, and it's not, and see how we go. Okay, so you can see the piece in there, but if we look down from the top, you can see how this is so much further forward than that. And if you look down here, you see those gouge marks in there. So at some stage, I suspect this thing's thrown the chain, bent that, and I had a bugger of a time getting it off because it was already broken. So I think not only has it broken it out, but it's also bent it on the way out. So that's why I'm having a bit of difficulty to line it up. Now that hole being that far forward is out of alignment with the side cover on the engine. So what I'm going to have to do is tack it up, sort of with the welder over this end, twist that back, tack it down here, and make sure that that hole is aligned with the cover once the cover goes on. So I've sort of matched the profile, but the profile's a little bit hard to match up, and this edge here is just sitting slightly proud, so I have to just keep whittling away, taking a little bit of a time, get it to sit down flush with this surface over here, tack weld over there, bend it back this way, get that hole back in alignment, and then I'll start fully welding it. So yeah, it's actually, I thought I was going to have a bit better run than that, but it's not working that way. Okay, so we've got some weld prep done, and interestingly enough, when I V'd it out to give myself a bit of a fillet to be able to weld into, it's actually brought that back into a pretty good alignment where that's the hole there is matching up. Also, it's now at the same level, so down the bottom, down in here, around here, this bottom bit's pulled out just a fraction, probably 1.5 mm, which will be fine when I weld it, but the main thing is that this hole's lined up and square, and so I've just pushed it, and these two are in alignment as well, but there's a rubber grommet that, as I said, fits in there. So time to drag the welder out and start do some tack welds and see if we can get this all lined up before we fully weld it. Okay, so we've got it to line up really well, and I'm going to go ahead and put a couple more tack welds in, check again, then I'll go through and fully weld it. 30 degrees and we're in a welding. It's pretty warm. Okay, end result. So there's the grommet that has to go in here. So that fits really well. Very happy with that. Fits good. Couple of little bits of porosity down the end, but generally the weld went all right. I couldn't get in right down the bottom. I couldn't poke the torch in. This was actually MIG welded, not TIG welded. But generally, I'm pretty happy. Everything lined up, and everything will fit. So not a bad outcome.